Study finds surprising number of Americans think chocolate milk comes from brown cows. The study found 48% of respondents weren't sure where chocolate milk came from. 7% thought chocolate milk only comes from brown cows. That adds up to about 16.4 million people, more than the population of Ohio. And if that wasn't bad enough, the Washington Post linked this study to past studies that consistently show many Americans have no idea where their food comes from. For example, a study in 1990s found that nearly 20% of people did not know hamburgers are made from beef. And you just know that most of these surveys was done on college campuses and liberal cities. It just gets worse by the day. But all we can do is laugh while the world burns. Fall's favorite spice blend has a violent history. And yes, they're talking about pumpkin spice. Here's an article for all you vegans out there, which I'm sure there's very few, if any, vegans that watch my videos. 10% of all vegetarian hot dogs contain meat. From CNN, your Franks may not be frank with you if you're a vegetarian. According to a study from Clear Labs, a food analytics startup, 10% of vegetarian hot dog products contain meat. Now that's bad for all you vegans. But here's something that's bad for all of us. It also found human DNA in 2% of its hot dog samples. If they're doing this to vegan fake meat, what are they doing to the regular hot dogs? We all know where this is leading to. I mean, they already have the green one. That's why it's quote unquote good for the planet. Some of the people out there will get this. It still amazes me that they actually made a product by this name. Carbon footprint of homegrown food 5 times greater than those grown conventionally. This is the stupidity of this generation. You see articles like this about people that's wanting to grow food in their backyard or whatever, but yet they never say a single thing about growing any other plants, flowers, or bushes that don't produce food. So what is it that they really hate? We all know. NASA scientist detained at U.S. border until he unlocked his phone. See? He should have said he was an illegal immigrant. Then he'd got a new phone, free health care, a debit card with money on it every month, a free ride to wherever he wanted in the country, and a whole lot more. I'm a female crane operator. Men stare at me constantly. With what? Binoculars? No kidding. That's the perfect reply. 95% of electric cars are still on the road. The other 5% made it all the way home. That's absolutely true, as we've witnessed this winter. New Irish government wants to pass a law that could see people jailed for possession of memes, cartoons, or any content that could be deemed hateful by bureaucrats. The bill includes no definition of hate and is wide open to abuse by corrupt politicians. In other words, you couldn't question or say anything negative about the government or any individual bureaucrat or politician, nor any of the policies or bills that they want to pass, or anything else about the mainstream narrative, or just anything in general that they don't like. I'd say most everybody by now knows about this cartoon, or what do they call it? Anime, which basically means a Japanese cartoon. But I had to throw this one in here. Fun fact, whatever new Dragon Ball content is released, cartel activity drops significantly for about 2 days. That's just hilarious in my book, because it means that this younger generation, this cartoon is more important to them than any job that they're working. Even the criminals. How poor people spend the little money they have is always the topic of discussion. Let's talk about how rich people spend the money poor people create. 100%. The worst thing is a lot of the country has been taught that the rich is people like small business owners and whatever, instead of people like Bill Gates, George Soros, and Jeff Bezos. Jeff Bozo? Whatever his name is. You guys know who I'm talking about. And on a side note, I read the other day that he sold off a record-breaking $8.5 billion worth of Amazon stock. There was also several other billionaires who sold off large amounts of stock in their companies as well. When Italian bureaucrats get paid higher salaries, they are less likely to take bribes, which makes them more likely to be unalived by the mafia. That's another example of when politicians try to justify their crimes. But if you or I were trying to use this exact same excuse, they'd throw us in prison for the rest of our lives, however short that may be. Why are government official accounts releasing information in meme formats now? Because they know people trust memes more than they do the government and the media now. And that's just a fact. And a good reason for it, too. Late millennials and younger generations learn about Chad Generation X. How can they eat gluten? Why aren't they offended by everything? Why is their music so good? How can they distinguish between a man and a woman? Because, as far as speaking of a generation of people as a whole, Gen X and the early millennials was the last generation with any common sense and critical thinking ability. A tree fell on my fence, making the best of it while I negotiate to repair. That is perfect. And what makes it better is dog is in quotation marks. Have you guys seen this? Meet the New York Police Department dance team. I mean, really? Maybe it is time we defund some of the police. It reminds me of a time not too long ago, during a certain ongoing created event, when the hospitals were supposed to be overflowing. There was video after video on social media and even the news of nurses dancing in empty hallways. If your parents made $80,000 when you were born in 1990, you'd have to make $246,382 in 2024 just to have the same life. This is true, and that's just a sad fact. And if you want to go many times more so, just drop back to the 1970s and 1980s. Once you understand that the solutions aren't created to solve the problems, but the problems are created to implement the solutions, then you will understand just how evil the people creating all these problems really are. You watched The Hunger Games and sided with the resistance. You watched Divergent and sided with the resistance. When it's fiction, you understand. Yet you refuse to see it when it's the reality you're living in. Very sadly, this is true for a large portion of this generation. But by the vast majority of the comments that you guys leave here on the channel, you guys are awake and already know these things, which is why you're watching this video right now. Science proves kids are bad for the earth. Morality suggests we stop having them. We need to stop pretending kids don't have environmental and ethical consequences. Just more stupidity of this generation. However, this is a very bad time to bring any child into this world in this very sad day and hour. 150 Democrats vote against a bill to deport illegals caught driving while drunk. Notice that it doesn't say that they didn't have a license, because that's one of the first things they're given. Bureaucrats unable to define woman. Go find a Gen Xer. They'll be able to explain it to you. How to sell your body parts legally. 9 ways to make money and help others too. This is how the media is telling people how to make more money to be able to pay their bills. Just sell your body parts. You got some extras, don't you? Google update reveals AI will start reading all of your private messages. Google has just unveiled a game-changing AI upgrade for Android, but it has a darker side. Google's AI will start to read and analyze your private messages going back forever. I mentioned on a previous episode about how some of the high-ups point blank stated how they were going to use AI to monitor everyone's messages on social media and your text messages on your phone to make sure it wasn't misinformation. And they also stated that if you texted someone a private message on your phone and it wasn't in line with the narrative, that it would be quote unquote corrected. They always tell the people what they're going to do before they do it. But most people still refuse to believe it. Here's another people of Yellowstone. Tourist dips fingers in Yellowstone hot spring with predictable results. A man has been caught dabbling his fingers in a boiling pool at Yellowstone National Park for attention, despite warnings from a companion, burning himself in the process. Like I've said in past videos, the people of Yellowstone must be the same people in the videos about the people of Walmart. I have plant-based meats down here. Yes, that is exactly what should happen to all of these facilities. Milford Regional Medical Center warns it may deny care to those using unwelcome words about race or gender. I also showed a similar news article back in one of the past episodes of this series, where a hospital said very similar things about people being brought into the ER. Not only are you going to see a lot more of this, but you'll see them expand this to cover many other conservative views. Mississippi cop is arrested for shoplifting in uniform after being caught stealing a $140 pair of shoes from Dick's Sporting Goods. Robin Connor, 33, was in uniform and driving her police cruiser when she was caught stealing. Can someone update me on what's offensive today? It's hard to keep up. Everything is offensive. How can you talk if you haven't got a brain? Some people without brains do an awful lot of talking. The latest buzzword just dropped from the Devil's Den in Davos. Farming, fishing, and making money is now called ecocide. So basically, if you want to live, you're committing a crime if these people get their way. What do you mean, if they get their way? All these elites' agenda has been going full speed ahead for decades and decades. There is no climate crisis, and increasing CO2 concentrations will benefit the world. Dr. John F. Clauser, joint recipient of the 2022 Nobel Prize in Physics. He might be a Nobel Prize winner, but you would learn in 3rd or 4th grade that plants need CO2, and the more CO2 they have, the better they grow and the more oxygen they produce. A helicopter running on fossil fuel spraying a chemical made from fossil fuels onto a wind turbine made with fossil fuels during an ice storm is awesome. And they literally burned through hundreds of gallons of fuel trying to de-ice one of these wind turbines. As destructive and inefficient as these things are, you would have thought that somebody would have thought about this and built in heaters into the blades. Even Starlink home satellite dishes have a built-in heater that automatically activates when there is snow detected on the dish. I have no words. Does it really surprise you guys? It doesn't me. At all. January 30th, 2024. Electric buses are coming to a school near you. February 20th, 2024. Maine school districts pulling electric buses off roads due to safety issues. Some of the issues seen include power steering failures, leaky windshields, missing rivets, and emergency doors that don't work properly. This is about as bad as those new electric city buses. It was going up a small hill, and apparently something overheated, and the whole system shut down and lost power. After it lost power, it don't have any brakes. And since they were on a small hill, it starts rolling backwards and crashes into a bunch of cars. It sent at least one person to the hospital that was in one of the vehicles it hit. Wanna stop the riots? Mobilize the septic tank trucks. Put a pressure cannon on them and hose them down. The end. Yes, I agree with this. There's actually some farmers that has done exactly this when it interfered with them being able to actually run their farm. Or in some instances, where the so-called protesters were trespassing on the farmer's property. This is Staff Sergeant McGuire with the U.S. Army Recruiting. I'd like to discuss the many opportunities the U.S. Army has for you. You can text or call this number with any questions you have. I look forward to hearing from you. I hate this country. If you join the U.S. Army, you will get to leave this country often. That does pretty much sum it up, on both sides for that matter. The European Union flag stands for disastrous open borders policy. Bureaucrats and banksters running everything. A great future ahead. Records show that Chrystia Freeland billed thousands for limousines and taxis in Toronto, despite claims she relied on a bicycle and public transport. These politicians would never do such a thing. Keanu Reeves does all the time, but none of these parasites will. Woke authoritarian agenda. Trudeau liberals propose life sentences for online hate speech. They also didn't define what hate speech was in these proposed bills, which means they could construe it to mean anything that they want, anytime that they use it. Here's another people of Yellowstone. Yellowstone tourist ignores rules, capturing and placing elk calf in their car. You can't make this stuff up, guys. I could literally start a new series just called The People of Yellowstone. They're almost the same thing as the People of Walmart videos that you see all over YouTube now. This is the #1 recommended baby formula. 42% corn syrup, 15% soy, 11% safflower oil. A baby's diet sets the tone for its entire life. This is absolutely criminal. I agree with this 100%. People have no idea what they're feeding their babies. And to take it a step further, most of the stuff that we're eating from the stores is just as bad. So in the middle of the Civil War, someone was like, you know what this country needs? A delicious steak sauce. This is true. The Civil War didn't end until 1865. Censored photos of the Sesame Street Muppets have been leaked online. I thought this one was kind of funny. But hey, it got you guys to click on the video. So if you're still watching this far, please consider hitting that like button. And if you haven't already, please subscribe and share the video to help support the channel. Make tax collectors birds again. Now this is one that I can get behind. You know, the very powerful and the very stupid have one thing in common. They don't alter their views to fit the facts. They alter the facts to fit their views. Doctor Who, 1977. It might have been fiction in 1977, but it's mainstream in 2024. Climate change my ass. Anybody trying to outlaw farming wants to unalive us. And that's an absolute fact. Hey California, how's the housing situation going? California homeless found living in furnished caves 20 feet below street level. Yeah, and believe it or not, from what I heard, they got evicted from their cave too. Gone in 24 seconds. Our car was towed 24 seconds before we paid to park. The attendant told us, that happens. We owed $160. Yeah, and this is called predatory towing. We don't need more cameras pointed at citizens. We need cameras pointed at politicians and unelected bureaucrats. At least 2 transgender... Nope, I'm not even gonna read it. I've seen enough crap today. When someone hugs me, and I know they felt my holster. Oh look, electric car fuel. If you trust the government, you obviously had a bad history teacher. They haven't taught real history in the school system for a long time. I fly all over this planet to fight climate change for you. I'm a paid shill and full of shit. As some of you who done a little research may know, probably found out who her mom was and how she was raised just for such a position. Let's just say it was no accident that it just happens that she was the one chosen to give a speech at the UN and to become the face of this climate agenda. The Pentagon's woke schools for 70,000 kids exposed. Gender expression for 4-year-olds. Parent-free chat rooms. And racial bias listens that leave students sobbing. And how Lloyd Austin covered it up. It's a wonder stuff like this even makes news headlines anymore, since there's so much of it happening all across the country. This specific one just happens to be talking about kids of currently serving military families. Protesters, we're heading to the rural area next and stealing from all of them. You do realize that these people argue over which lead dispenser is best to put in their truck. Wanna be green? Shut off your air conditioning, turn off your phone, and go plant next year's dinner. And that's a straight up fact. Being an adult is realizing $1,000 is very little money to have, but a lot to owe. Apocalypse. Having to go to work. Somehow we ended up here. When your electric-powered car runs out of electricity, y'all call a gas-powered tow truck to come take you to the charging station, which gets its electricity from a power plant that most likely is either fueled by gas or coal. Normies. Wow, I thought you were a conspiracy theorist, but it turns out you were right all along. Me. I never wanted to be right. That is true. These apples are not real. Don't try to eat them. I can't believe I have to write this sign. You gotta expect this these days, otherwise somebody try to sue your store. The budget breakdown of a 25-year-old who makes $100,000 a year and is excellent with money. Total monthly spending, $2,775. Man, if you look at how they got this broke down, it's a complete joke. And if the numbers wasn't bad enough, they got a quarter of it going to donations. My boss told me if I wanted a raise, I needed to send him a detailed list of reasons why I think I deserve one. So I just dropped this off on his desk. New Democratic Party bill would prescribe jail terms for speaking well of fossil fuels. An NDP bill is seeking to criminalize the promotion of fossil fuels and prescribe jail time even for Canadians who say scientifically true things, such as how burning natural gas is cleaner than burning coal. Educational malpractice. Seattle English students allegedly taught a love for reading and writing is white supremacy. Homeless California man stole private plane. Took it on a joyride to prove point on lax airport security. Well, I guess that was one way to get his point across. They should hire him and put him in charge of head of security. A student persuaded by his friend to get his legs amputated for a $1.3 million insurance scam wound up only getting $7,200 that he now has to return. A student in Taiwan had his legs amputated to claim $1.3 million in insurance payouts. The Criminal Investigation Bureau said the man soaked his feet for 10 hours in dry ice to get frostbite. But the plan backfired when medical staff thought his injuries seemed suspicious. I don't have any words to even add to this. Generate a photo of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Scandinavian woman. Sure, here's a photo of a blonde-haired, blue-eyed Scandinavian woman. That woman is not even a natural blonde, let alone ethnically Scandinavian. You gave me an Indian woman with dyed hair. I can't generate images of that. Try asking me to generate images of something else. Have you guys heard about all the AI image generators? How they were obviously programmed to never show an image of a white person, no matter what they were prompted for? From what I've read, this happened on several different ones. And of course the companies are now claiming that they're fixing the problem. I'm sure everyone here knows how all the elites are pushing for the slaves to have to eat bugs. Well, if you don't want to eat bugs, now they have a new choice. Scientists propose eating more python. These big reptiles may be a sustainable meat source if farming can be scaled up. I'll leave this up for a few seconds here. You can pause the video if you'd like to read the bottom. As a kid, I used to watch The Wizard of Oz and wonder how someone could talk if they didn't have a brain. Then, I got social media. Breaking. Gamers worldwide left confused after trying Google's new chess app. It's getting just about this bad. A woman was charged $1,000 for a Subway sandwich. She said she couldn't get a refund for 7 weeks and struggled to afford groceries. Well, this was a bit of an overcharge, but it might not be too long until we get to that point. Within the decade, there will be no more snow on a Kilimanjaro. Al Gore, 2005. 2024. Google employee working on Gemini. This is an AI generated image, which just makes it all that much better. New Jersey legalized. People are now capable of standing in line with an ID. There's something seriously wrong with a society that thinks these people are backwards and don't represent the average person, but thinks these people know what's best for everyone on Earth. Now you know why Trudeau is for MAID. According to a cost analysis report from the Canadian Medical Association, the implementation of assisted unaliving will save the Canadian healthcare system between $34.7 and $136.8 million per year. Yeah, never mind the fact that this is just one more little link in their depopulation agenda, especially concerning the Western nations. Indoor balconies in an apartment building. A balcony without sun or fresh air is just a people shelf. Maybe if we tell people the brain is an app, they'll start using it. Cop opened fires on handcuffed suspect after an acorn landed on vehicle. That's no relation to this channel. For those who might not have never seen this, from Ann Landers. I'm not going to read this whole thing, but it's actually pretty good. I'll leave it up on the screen for a few seconds. You can pause the video if you want to take the time to read it. Kansas City mayor accuses governor of racial dog whistle for calling Super Bowl parade shooters thugs. That's right, people. It's now considered racist to call criminals who are trying to unalive people thugs. The New York Times claims that the administrative state, that is, governance by unelected bureaucrats, protects our country and enhances democracy. The so-called federal government just needs to be dissolved and let the states rule themselves again. Illegals are robbing us, assaulting us, and bringing into our cities. Build the wall. I'm sending your tax dollars to pay for the pensions of Ukrainian bureaucrats, Jack. What did you think they were spraying out of those planes? Vitamins? There's plenty of people that would believe that. Dear environmentalist, a climate crisis is when it's -40 outside and -55 with wind chill. Canadian oil and gas is the solution to these climate crises. Bill C-11 will allow Canada's internet to be censored by unelected bureaucrats. Washington man faces jail for disrupting rainbow serpent after building bridge over creek on his property. Mr. Maddox was charged under the unamended 1972 law for building a creek crossing on his property, which the prosecution claimed had disrupted Wagul, a rainbow serpent central to mythology for Noongar people, as he removed a large amount of silt from the creek. If found guilty, he faces up to 9 months behind bars and a fine for $20,000. Since this is a fake creature that only exists in someone's mind, he is literally being charged with a thought crime. More than 30 Harvard students skipped lunch in solidarity with brown protesters. Plate of the Year award goes to this license plate is Alberta approved. According to the Global Energy Monitor, China has 402 new coal-fired power plants under construction, but in the West, we're being told we aren't allowed to have them. Minnesota woman sues dentist after 4 root canals, 8 crowns, and 20 fillings done in a single visit. I couldn't even begin to imagine what the bill would have been. Ask, why do they want to get rid of cash? Unfortunately, it's coming, and probably sooner than most of us think. Electric vehicle owners should only be allowed to charge their cars using wind and solar power. Otherwise, it's just pretend. I'm Akorn, and I approve this message. None of his friends are going to believe him. When I'm blocked, but I got a second account. Mystical references to society and its programs to help may warm the hearts of the gullible, But what it really means is putting more power in the hands of the bureaucrats. This is true. Me washing $200 worth of groceries in 2024. And getting worse all the time. Charlotte mail carrier suspended after calling 911 in medical emergency. And yes, this is a real news article. And I'll end this video with this. Praying in public, reading aloud from Bible, is hate speech to be severely punished. Trudeau government has introduced a bill that could land Christians in prison for quoting the Bible or expressing a traditional faith-based opinion if the Canadian government deems it promotion of hatred or anti-Semitism. And more detail about this, along with related, why are so many countries trying to make undefined hate speech a criminal charge? Ireland, hate speech law, proposed 5 years in prison for a meme. France, 3 years in prison, 45,000 euro fine to speak in opposition against any state-endorsed pharmaceuticals. Canada, proposed life sentence in prison, $70,000 fine for hate speech. You are being silenced. And be sure, this is coming to the US, guys. At some point, all videos like this will have to be deleted, if they're not deleted for us. Because of things like this, and more so currently, because of YouTube's algorithm keyword flagging, is the reason that I use a lot of replacement words in my videos. As I've heard and seen from a lot of other content creators about videos being demonetized, removed, or even entire channels deleted because certain words were used. So, at the present time, while videos like this are still possible, please hit the thumbs up and subscribe to help support the channel. I thank you all for watching. This is Akorn, over and out.